over and over, taking years. But when it's ready and you come into full alignment, it just happens. And you wake up and you're like, oh my gosh, what's happening? Here I am. And then you can start to move forward in that connection. So yeah, it's beautiful. Happy to tell you how I had, like you, I spent the first couple of years of my life in the hospital, very sick. I had a crushed nervous system. I had a pectus ovectum, which is a hole in the chest. So my rib cage didn't stop growing. My stomach valve, so I have a hole in my chest. My stomach valve was sealed shut, but back then they didn't know. I was born in a remote town. So my hips and legs were also not attached. So what they did is they strapped me to the bed, fed me through my head, put me in a cast, and that was it. And then out of nowhere, some doctor showed up and heard there was a sick little kid in town. And he came and said, I think I can fix that. Like, her stomach valve is closed, so no food's getting in, hence why they had to use the IV. So he opened it. And then from there, I was the youngest kid in Canada diagnosed with ulcer. I was 5, 6 years old. I was very young. I remember looking at it, which they're like, this kid worries about everything. What's going on in her life? I lived on a mask to breathe. I shook like this all the time because my nerve system was so bad. And that was life. And it was trauma, and it was drama, and it was dysfunction, and it was bullying, and everybody's story in space. So I actually had in my life 3 near-death experiences. And believe it or not, even after the third one, which I must have been about 32, so I'm 47 now. And even after when I almost died with my second daughter, and I developed all these rare conditions, I still wasn't my whole body was failing me. I had everything you can imagine, and I still didn't know what to do. I kind of would go, what's this meditation thing? I always said I was like a closet person. I wouldn't let anyone know that I'm looking outside of myself because I was in an extremely abusive marriage. It was extremely dysfunctional. And I started to realize there were patterns. My mom had a lot of things that I had gone through. She had had abusive marriage. They'd had rapes. I had the same illnesses they had, like diverticulitis, irritable bowel, racing heart. I'm like, what's going on here? So I knew it was more than genetics, but I didn't know what was happening. And when I was 5, I went through a kidnapping. And when I had the gun to my head, I blacked out. But after that moment, I started... like, I could feel things, but I didn't know what it was. And I was just little, and no one's going to tell me back then. They were just like, whatever. And after that trauma, I started seeing very dark things. And of course, my parents would just say, it's fine. It's a nightmare. You had a bad experience. Go away. You're fine. Right. So I just cried every night in my bed because these things, I would see them like they're things. But who do you tell? You think you're crazy. You carry on and fit in like everybody else. And, so that went on for a long time. And when I left the marriage, I actually had enough courage to leave and go. I was so sick. And the doctor said, I don't know if you're even going to make it long term. Your body is completely falling apart. And I had done everything the medical system had told me. I had gone into 5 neurologists who said, live with it, and I want to rip my head off. And there was something eating at me that said, there's more. Something's more. So even after that third near-death experience where I left and I saw those colors and I heard, and I was actually in my bed and I'm like, I'm out of here. Because the other 2, I'm like, really? I'm back. Really? I don't want to be here. Like, it was everything I wanted to leave. I can't replicate the colors or the sounds. But when I came back, I was like, I kept hearing, you got to be here for your kids. Because I'm like, I'm not going to leave my kids to someone who can't provide. And it was just a situation what it was. Best teacher I've ever had. But it was interesting because then I realized what being selfish was, not what we were taught, but having to care for me, look at me, because if I didn't, then I wasn't going to change and my kids would have been left alone. So that was my aha moment, but I was so angry that I was thinking, who creates a life like this? I was victimizing myself, screaming at myself, getting mad at everyone else. You did this to me. You did, that whole space.
Yeah, I know that one.
Yeah, and you get mad at the world. And then I realized, and then I developed I called them bad cells. I'm not going to use that other word. And I had to really dig deep. And I said to the doctors, I said, I'm just getting rid of my anger with my ex-husband. Let's do this way. So I kind of had to make joke of it. But I started to realize that I went through understanding. I had to go the science route because, like you say, God, source, that high vibration of love and connected. I had so many religious beliefs too. You know, you grow up in the
Yeah.
family. Yeah. And I was like, there's no God up there. Don't tell. I was fascinated by the word, but I'm like, God's not a man in the sky. And nobody, if they love, would put somebody in this space. And I realized later I had it all wrong, right? My teachings were all wrong, which I grew up with. And I was carrying all these responsibilities that I thought were right and programs I thought were right. And my body was holding on to them. And I'm like, well, the doctor said, okay, my parents had it, so I have it. And my religious teachings growing up were like, okay, that's it. And you're going to be punished if you don't do this and that. And I was like, so I was holding all this. And so that's why I had to go science first. And I realized later that I was still going down the wrong way, right? But it gave me a little comfort to say, okay, maybe I'm not crazy. Maybe my body's trying to tell me something. And I noticed that within about 3 months of leaving my marital home and going to my own home with my kids, I slept and my stomach was feeling way better just by making that change.
By which change?
Leaving my marriage.
Oh, oh.
And I was like, wait a minute. And then I started to realize how people kill people all the time. And I was like, wait a minute, the stress and the anxiousness. And I started to get very fascinated with the body. So that's why I could kind of go the science. It was safe route, right? It was like, okay, there's some backing. And then I tried the spiritual path. And then I'm like, this meditation thing doesn't work for me. My brain doesn't work that way. But okay, if somebody can meditate, the way I was taught at that time wasn't working. I meditate very different. I meditate by really zoning when I'm at the water and I connect with nature, or I'm cooking and I zone out, or I'm listening to some high vibration and I'm listening and watching. And I'm like, okay, I had to do it. I'm like, I got to do it a little bit differently. And then there was all these systems that I started to look at, and I realized, oh my gosh, as all my learnings and all my travelings, I went, we're all can connect to source, pure God source energy. And if we learn to connect directly with pure source God energy, it's like this, we can start moving things in our life when we're ready. So a lot of times people say, well, I did that, it didn't work. But I'm like, but how many times have you realized you're not ready? Like even things that I was saying today, and that where we go, we want this. And I'm like, well, what's the underlying fear? Because if it's not happening, we have a fear. And how do we ask to move it? And when I started to connect direct and go to that beautiful source energy, I'm like, wow, this is for everybody. And this doesn't have to be super complicated. And I also started to get all this information about these incredible, I call them technology, our bodies, but like they're like computers. I love to like equate them that way, because the reason I liked it, because people need visualizations, right? But I'm like, this body listens to everything I tell it. So when you connect direct, your body is going to also listen and work with you. And then this whole awareness of, wow, look at what we've been taught to live for someone else, not ourselves.
And you made that leap when you left your marriage. You literally collapsed that reality by taking a physical decision to leave
Correct.
the marriage, which opened up your potential to receive a connection to pure source. You didn't have to do some mumbo jumbo spiritual ritual. You had to actually get up and leave. That was the spiritual ritual. The spiritual ritual was leaving.
It was the action.
It was the action.
It was
and
the
that
action.
opened you to this technology of source and the
Yes.
body suddenly coming into a closer union.
Correct. And it really allowed me, you know what it did too? By doing the action, it allowed me to also go back into my power, my inner power, right? In terms of that I'm okay and that source has me. It's got me.
And you
It's
were
like,
the co-creator with it.
yes.
For your
And
decisions.
oh my God, I'm so glad.
Boundaries.
I love that word, co-creator, because I use it all the time. I'm like, what are you? And and that pure, beautiful God source love energy, what are you co-creating?
Mm.
Always be in co-creation. That is one of my favorite words, because I really realized that I was taught it was mental. It was my goal setting. It was what somebody before me told me. So all my power was gone. And by leaving the marriage and listening to my body, it was like, wait a minute. Change came like that. Like,
Yeah.
I battled with those stomach problems since I was 5.
Yeah.
5. And
Mm.
bang, within literally 90 days, I'm not even really just paying attention. I literally went to a restaurant, ate a meal, and realized I didn't run to the bathroom. And I'm like, what's going on here? Why are we okay? And it was a little bit of the doubt, but then I started to, my phrase was like, okay, thank you, God. But I'm thanking that universal divine source energy that's working with me. Just like I said, that co-creation, we're doing it together.
And then how did that open you then to this understanding about the body being like a computer when it was running on the source energy? That's like bridging what you were saying there. Can you tell me more about that?
Yeah. I started to, some of it was coming from my fascination of understanding on a science way of the body, right? So things that I had sort of seen and how the body works. And I was like, wow, our body, like a computer, if you take a component out of the computer, it doesn't work, right? So our body is more intelligent than a computer when you connect to source, because you can take components out. It will function, but it doesn't function at full capacity. So it's kind of like when your computer screen has a crack in it, you only get half the screen, it functions, but still not full capacity.
Yeah.
And I started to realize, and part of it had to do with my stomach and then my vein problems. And also I came with so many physical issues that I started to go, okay, maybe there was a reason Pure Source Energy gave me physical issues to have to understand how my body is talking to me. Because where are you taught to listen to what your body's saying? Like, how many times do people eat a ton of sugar, feel like crap, and still eat the sugar? But the body's saying, I don't like that. Or they get really tired after eating something because the body's saying, I don't like that. Or you go into a room with people and you go, something doesn't feel right. Oh, it's just me. But it's your body saying, just keep awareness, you know. And we are always, I was taught mental, not don't look at what my body's telling me. But my body is telling me, because when you're connected to source, it's coming through. It's like when people's ears ring, spirit's got something to tell you. Somebody's trying to tell you something, you know. Or if your stomach's upset, something's going on. But it was that intelligence of the system that when I started to learn that if you connect the intelligence of the system to pure source energy, you're moving like this. Because your body's always talking to you, and we can't get away from our body till we die. Our soul's in there, our spirits are in there, there's our body. So it starts to move. And so it was a matter of allowing a lot of people to understand a visualization if they needed it. But if you really connect into your body's system, it's brilliant. We have this brilliant systems. It's like when a baby's born, people aren't going, oh, let's put the hand on, let's put the foot on. The body knows how to create itself. And it comes out and everyone goes, oh, it's a miracle. And then, you know, a month later, it's like, oh, you're a pain in my ass. I can't sleep. I can't this. I'm like, but you wanted the baby. It's a miracle. Because we're literally all miracles, because we have fingers and toes. And what did the mother have to do? Eat and sleep. The baby grew. So that beautiful energy of source and connection just happened. And I think we forget that in life. I forgot it. I forgot that if we're connected, like the baby grows in the womb, it just happens. It happens, but we create all of our own, our huge amounts of systems and belief. And then people make it so complicated. Another layer, another layer, another layer. I'm like,
well, I think that's what we were discussing beforehand, that majority of new age modalities add layers on that actually go around the issue rather than resolving it and addressing it direct with pure source. Because of the paradigm that we've been in. And it has kind of sort of worked a bit, but it hasn't literally removed the issue at source, at core, at root.
At root.
Shifted it. Because that was part of the paradigm of thinking.
No. And I always say we remove it at the root cause. I don't really care, because that pure source energy knows where the root cause is. So you and I don't really need to know where the root cause is, because if you're connected to pure source, you do that accumulate. I just say, I'm going to remove the accumulation of wherever that root cause is. Thank you. Thank you, God. Thank you, Don. Thank you, pure source, divine light energy, whatever you want to call it. Thank you. It's done.
And yet there's an obsession with knowing precisely where it is and valuing sort of maybe a psychic or a modality that can measure it and analyze it and tell you the origin of it, and then catharting and farting around it. But if someone said, look, I can't quite tell you exactly how it came about, and we're not going to do a big emotional catharsis, and this won't be a big process, but I can clear it.
Yeah.
In about 20 seconds.
Do you know where that comes
20 years
from?
therapy. Do you want that? And they'll be like, but where's my bitty and all that? Where's the bitty? Where's the bit for my pain body to hang on to and to form an identity?
Where's the story? They want the story. I say to people, how many things in your lifetime are you hanging on to define you? So you say you shifted that, but you're still talking about the same thing over and over and over again.
For the pound for that. But the thing is, sorry.
But I was going to say, part of what I've noticed, and I did this before I even found any sort of work like this and worked with so many people, was for myself, we're taught to go to psychologists, psychiatrists, counselors, right? So what do? They sit there and say, how are you feeling today? Tell me your story. And then next week, how are you feeling today? Tell me your story. And I remember when I walked out of one, I'm like, I don't want to talk about my story anymore. I just want to be better. I just want it done. I don't want to talk anymore. I want it to be just done. I want to like, this isn't me anymore. I lost it on her. I said, I'm not paying you $150 an hour anymore. Sit here and complain about my story. It's done. I can't do anything else. I want to move forward. I want to know that it's done and just have a new life. And she said, well, then I think you're in the wrong place. You're never going to get better. She goes, this is how it is. And it triggered for me, because I'm like, and I started to watch. I'm like, how many people just sit in this over and over, because we're conditioned. The more you talk about it. I said today with one episode, I said, when it's moved, it's done. Carry on. Now go to the next thing. Go do your life. Go. It's done. It's finished. So when it's shifted with pure source energy, it's done. And if more people really got that field would grow. So people like you and me and other people that are getting that's the field we all want to plug into. When I've done it once, it's done. Now I'm going to change my action.
So bringing that exact point back to you. So we're on your timeline where you'd left your husband, you'd started to heal your stomach issues.
Yeah.
What was the next big leap in applying that law? How was it? Was it sort of healing yourself, or was it starting to work with other people? What happened in this awakening?
No, although I've been in this space for 15 years, I spent a lot of time. For 8 years, I was fumbling around. I'm like, this isn't working. That's not working. Because I had stomach issues. I had emotional issues. I didn't name it. Like all of us have stuff, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. And I would get off the wagon and I'd find myself going around and around and around in the same thing. And I'm like, felt like, you got your foot nailed to the floor and you're going around and around and around. And I'm like, this is not working. And it was I sort of had these increments. So the next big one was when I'd seen all the neurologists about my head, because literally I walked around like this. People would ask me if I'm having seizures. Nope, Tracy, I live with it. I have a tick, actually. Before I operate, I hit everybody on the head, and I'm sitting there going, oh, okay, I don't want you to operate on me. And he's like, live with it. And I had seen bits of increments of change, right? But I was also asking myself, okay, what else do I want to change? What do I need to let go of in my life? Who do I need to let go of? And that was a painful spot. I almost didn't want to even wake up more, because when you let people go, you're like on that island by yourself, and it sucks. You're like, I have no friends. I have no people.
Yeah, there's that alone time, isn't there? That time walking it alone.
And I hated being by myself, because I was terrified to be by myself. That was it. Because when I saw that last neurologist, and I just was connecting and I was moving, and I was, really, I would have a lot of conversation with Source. That was an outlet for me. I didn't know. I thought maybe I was just being wonky, but I'm like, so why is this happening? What else do I need to look at? show me the people, show me the places. Is there somewhere else I need to go? Is there someone? So I would have these questions with pure, and I'd always say, I only connect with pure source energy. Only pure source energy can connect with me, because I remember
a lot of stuff out there that's not pure source, that's also up there.
Oh, there's a lot. And I remember one time this one was like, come with me, you'll see this, and you'll like this little story, because they're like, oh, she's this great channeler. I'm like, channeler? What's a channeler? And I was sitting there, I'm like, something's not right. Something's not right. And she's like, close your eyes. And I'm like, no. So me, the little rebel, I'm like, I'm going to watch. Sure enough, she's like looking around like this. I was like, oh boy. So that was my awareness, that you have to start to be very discerning. And I started to get this heaviness in my stomach. And then I got really good at saying, I only connect to pure source energy, and only pure source energy can connect with me. And when I started doing that, that was like, I got the awareness around my head, my shakes. Like I kept saying, I kept hearing and feeling, everything is okay in your body, Trace. You actually need a physical adjustment. And then I found an osteopath who's like, oh, you have a hole in your chest. Yeah, let me move this. Never had a head shake since, but I was told to live with it, right? But I kept saying, what is next? So I have these dialogues, and just by having the dialogue, the answer showed up. The creation showed up. I just had to learn to speak. And I learned that by speaking, for me, I felt like I was being heard, because I was actually just seeing stuff showed up, and I didn't have to give that away. I was just like, okay, I'm only connecting to pure source energy. But it was interesting. I would get that feeling if something tried to come in that wasn't. And I couldn't explain it for a long time. And then I realized that was like my radar. And that's why I got so fascinated with the body, because it was like a radar of when, oh, pay attention. So I didn't judge it, but I paid attention. I'm like, oh, I'm glad I paid attention. I'm glad I had the awareness.
So like the body is literally the pain, but let me just try and reword this back to you. As you make the body cleaner and clearer and hone it in on pure source.
Yes.
And take these steps to cut out toxic situations, toxic people. And what you do is you hone down your pain body, and you turn your pain body into an alive instrument to realign you to pure source and tell you when you're wonky and working off track, or something's trying to pull you off track. Whereas the pain body of, when it's not been trained in like that, hungers for dysfunction. It seeks out those patterns that are going to draw you sideways, downwards, backwards, anyway other than in a direct connection with pure source. So it literally colludes with all the negativity. So are you describing to me this journey into literally taking hold of your pain body and making it your ally to connect to pure source and taking it with you on the journey?
100%, because it's part of who I am. But I was able to, for me, when I had that realization, because all my things went through a physical, like every time I had another physical release, I had another aha moment. So when I had something that was extremely bad, like when I couldn't breathe and was living on oxygen because my allergies were so bad and all these medicines, and then I was able, and I didn't even know what I was doing as a teenager. That was another wake up. I was like, okay, if there's something out there, and we're connecting, and all of a sudden they left. And so you're correct that the pain body and my pain body loved trauma, because then I got noticed. It loved drama, because then I got noticed. And it was like, oh, look, I have this. Oh, look, I have this. And people go, oh, it's okay. But I'll tell you something. When I got the pain body under control, my family didn't want to talk to me anymore. My friends went away. I had nobody left. And I said, and I noticed my sisters who love their pain body still today, they get all this attention. And I noticed this years ago, and I had to really come to terms with that. And I said, ooh, but I don't want my pain body. So they can have the attention. I'll still love and forgive my parents where they are, and we can have fun, but you guys can keep that. Because correct, when you don't have that, it's freedom. But we're conditioned to carry it. Look at the news, look at the media, you're conditioned. The more pain, the better.
And freedom is actually quite unemotive. It's not all juicy and yummy and emotional all the time.
No.
Which is, how the new age, I've been hooked in personally to that yumminess of group, of tribe, of, working my trauma, trying to cathartic my trauma, and then we sit and we share it and we all bond and it all gets very yummy. But nothing actually fundamentally changed in my life when I was on that path.
No, and that's
where friends as well who all shared that distortion.
Yeah. But see, that's where on spiritual paths like that, and how do I say this properly, is that people use it as a mask and it pushes things down. So what I say is, if you're really connected to source, what I have found, and you want change, you have to be willing through your whole life. You're going to go through peaks and valleys. It's not always going to be roses and fairies and butterflies. And that's how
Don't
we
forget
get
the unicorns. Don't forget the unicorns.
Oh yes. And the unicorns, so when I see, it's like when people say to me, I'm like, somebody will say, how's your day? And you see them and they go, oh, it's beautiful. And I'm looking at them going, why don't you just be honest? And they're like, what? I said, not every day is going to be beautiful. Just say I'm having a rough day. I'll get through it. Good. Connect to pure source. It's going to help you through.
Yeah.
And sometimes people go, what? But I had to learn that because I didn't want anyone to know, because I bought into the spiritual space of, oh, it's all so lovely. Everybody's always happy. We're not always happy. We're as human beings. It's how we're going to go. And that's how we grow. Like, I will tell you, I just had to go through another big growth spurt for where I was moving to. Was it fun? No. Did it suck? Sure it did. But the difference is when you connect to pure source, it's 3 days of sucky, not 3 months. So it's a lot quicker. But it's
more efficient. It's basically, source is like nature. It's uber efficient. Yeah. And it's not interested in process. It's interested in the most direct way to connect you to the next level that you're going to need to be at.
I always say, if you can give up your time expectation and how it's going to happen, you're golden. That's hard to do because we're conditioned.
And doing that is just coming back to this body instrument, to the breath, to the presence of being in it, and connecting our presence, our breath, our body to pure source.
Yes.
Howling, if that's what's going to take to stay in that presence of it.
Yeah, I say if you need to stand in your head, if that does it, it doesn't matter how you need to do it. No right, no wrong. But that's where, when people are always about the mind, clear the mind, move the mind, you're using one component of this entire beautiful. If we were only to have a mind, we would have come with only a mind. But we came with this beautiful vehicle because we need the entire vehicle to connect to pure source energy. So this whole mental mind thing, oh, the mind. And I'm like, no, because that's not how we connect to pure source energy. It's a feeling.
So tell me,
awareness.
It's a feeling and an awareness.
And awareness, yeah.
Tell me how that came through, that thread we're just talking about now, came through in the next level of your life. So you'd have this big 8-year self-healing, getting lost, getting found, getting lost, clearing, learning, getting yourself whole and well.
Yes.
What was after that? What came next?
Well, it was interesting because I was in a corporate world and selling my soul to the devil, I called it, and dying and making great money. And the company I was with, I started to notice some things that were red flags. I mean, I was loving over here, helping people and serving people. It was so much fun. And I was like, well, what can I do to help you? What can I do to help you? I'm not talking in my job, but people would come and they'd be like, I'm like, well, have you thought of looking at it this way or connecting this way? So I would give people examples of things they could do. And they'd be like, Tracy, my body feels better. My marriage is better. And I'm like, oh, awesome. Meanwhile, I'm in finances, and I was like, so I started to notice some things were coming to my attention that were less than honorable, as we all know, in the financial industry. And I started to call the CFO and stuff out. And now, of course, it was a lot of, you're a horrible woman, you're stupid, you're a woman, like all this, only to realize I was right later. It wasn't about that. But what it did is, as I left that space, universe, source said, you're out of here. And I got it later, because when it said you're out of here, I was like, what am I going to do? I went into that, okay, I have my kids. And I still hadn't moved that piece yet because I was a provider, blah, blah, blah. And I went, I have a choice. I can follow what I know pure source, beautiful energy is telling me. I love helping all these people. Or I can sell my soul to the devil and go have that $400,000 a year job downtown on Bay Street. And I struggled. And I saw later, Thank you. I made that right choice. I feel, I was like, I saw later the temptation of what I call dark energy. People have different names. I don't care. Demonic, dark, I don't care what people want to call it. But I saw how strong that was and how it holds so many of us from really not fulfilling our purpose and keeps us in fear from the money. So it wasn't being handled properly. I started to see I saw it. So some things I see, some things I feel, and some things I hear. And I started to see and have really bad dreams when I would kind of go back in to go, okay, I'm going to go into corporate. That's what I should do. My family's freaking out. How are you going to take care of your kids? All their pressure, all their projection energy. And I took a breath and I'm like, I'm not going to tell anyone. I'm just going to go help people because I love this. I've been doing it in my roundabout way since I was a little kid. I'm just going to follow. And when I made that choice, it was like, and I'd only had this experience one before when I left my marriage. It was like you put a million bricks on your shoulders and they came up and this lightness came in and it fell off. And I didn't know how, I didn't know where. And that's where I got really good at saying, thank you. Thank you. Show me where next to go. Show me what next to do. Show me what I need. And people just started to come and they were like, Tracy, this is better. This is better. I'm like, great. And I said, I want you to be empowered. I don't want you coming to me every day. I don't want you being reliant. I want you to be so connected that you empower yourself. So everywhere you go, you touch another life. You make another life. And my saying every day then, and I still say it today, if I've helped make a difference in one person's life, I've done good today. That's what I want to do. That makes me happy. That makes me peace. And so it was that process of it was a dark night of the soul. It was about 3 or 4 months of wrestling with having to let go of what all these society beliefs and connecting.
So what that tells me is it takes a momentum to break through. It's like an elastic band. So just one decision to leave work wasn't enough.
No.
I think when I see people and they get a big splurge on the first session and suddenly like the elastic band comes back and it starts to pull them back into the old shape after a few weeks. So how did you maintain that momentum? So you talk to God, pure source.
Pure source. You know what? Every day I literally, and I still do it today, because people say, well, you shouldn't have to ever, I said, you got to connect every day. You're not giving away your power. I ask every day, if there's something I need to look at, show me. If there's something and I need to bounce it off somebody, I don't hesitate to call and say, what is this? What are you seeing? It's like a while ago when this lady, quite a while back, she said to me, I kept saying, I want to go to the next level. I want to go to the next level. I was getting frustrated. I didn't think things were moving as fast, right? She said, so what's the fear under there? And I kind of went, what? I don't have any fear. It's just exciting. It's fun. And so I took it. I sat. I said, okay, what's the fear? The fear was it wasn't going to happen. So I was creating a fear. But what happens a lot of times is you just don't wake up and do it one time. What I find is the connection, it's natural, but it's the way you live. It's the way you see people, your compassion, your understanding that we're constantly changing. So what happened was, for me to even leave the corporate world and come here, I still had to work through the fears. I still would go to, groups and people. I had a great friend. I used to bounce things off her all the time. She goes, have you thought of that? Have you thought of this? I'm like, no. And I'd sit with it. I'm like, thank you, God, show me the answer. Thank you to the divine pure source energy. And I would get more information. And one of the things at that moment that I had to learn, I had to stop second guessing and trust. Because I didn't fully trust it. I was only at that point probably trusting maybe 80%. That is a key, because we all will still get caught up on that when we go, and it's like, okay, why am I not trusting? And I still get moments. Things move sometimes so quickly. I'm like, okay, thank you, but can we slow down? And I get afraid because I love it, but at the same time, like, can I handle it? So I have to trust. I'm like, okay, pure source energy, that hand of God, that love wouldn't be bringing this to me if I couldn't handle it. And so it's a daily thing. For me, it's daily. And a lot of times when people get into spirituality or they take this shift, they think it's one time. They think it's like a pill that you go to the doctors, or they think someone's going to give you a psychic answer. And I got in that trap when I was really just getting out of the marriage, and people like, go to this person. And I didn't understand that space. I'm like, psychic, I had to learn we all have psychic abilities when we connect for ourselves and we can help. But I realized it's like, why is none of that stuff happening that they tell me is going to happen? Because I was giving away my power. And I went, wait a minute, if you're connecting to pure source energy, you guys have the power to change anything. So why am I holding on to information? So I was like, oh, that's nice. Don't want that. Thank you very much. Don't, thank you very much. Thank you very much. So I say now, even in my own life, people offer things and I'm like, oh, okay, I'll take that. If I like what it is, I'll take that. If there's some awareness, I thank you, hand of God, to show me the awareness. And if not, then I just say, thank you very much. And I literally give it back. And so trusting, that's, I think, the hardest one for a lot of us, and for a lot of us to do, is to trust that what we're receiving is correct, because usually it means we have to change again. So we'll feel unsettled. And then when our body tells us, and you really get good at listening to the body, and then it's easier to trust. But that one still, I haven't seen anyone that can fully, I would say trust, no believe, but at different times in our life, there's going to be the doubt and the fear, because it's something we have to look at. It's huge. It's huge. It's a big one. It's a big one. And to trust that what you're feeling inside is that right direction. And this beautiful, beautiful system that we're given with speaks to us 24/7, not mentally, but physically.
And also it attracts symbols and it attracts synchronicities. We might turn the radio on and hear the words of a song, or just scroll down on social media and just see some words. I'm noticing that more and more we're getting messages constantly. But our bodies are crammed full of, we're overeating, we're sugar binging, we're overdoing our spirituality and our mental protective, our identities. It can't get through. We can't receive. We're too full of literally crap to receive this dialogue, this universal language.
It's true. And that's why simplicity is so nice, because even in our homes or our friends, our information, because we only have so much energy that we can work with and expel. So if we fill it up with all those things you're saying, we don't have any connection left to open to the synchronicities, to pay attention. Like, who taught you about synchronicities? We don't learn that in school. They don't teach us to listen to the song that came on, or watch when that person came through, or, how many times now do you go, what did you say? And it's something that you've just asked about. Or, I had a lady, I said, you're ready for a new job. I said, I'm going to give you something. Why don't you just listen to what other people are saying? Listen to what they're saying when you're at work. I bet you'll find a new job. She must have emailed me 3 days later. She goes, I was at this function and this manager was saying she was looking for a new person. It's what I wanted. I went over and said, I was so afraid. And I said, would you by chance hired her for the job? But she goes, I never even thought to really keep my ears open, and all she did was
happening all around. This is what I found with my clients. When I just removed, say, an ancestral pattern or a trauma, suddenly that opportunity, that gift, that abundance, it flows in that almost effortlessly. And they're like, but you didn't do anything. And I didn't have to do anything. And it's so unspectacular and it's so easy. It's almost too easy.
It is. And it's funny. I always say to people, if you're listening properly, most people are waiting to hear that, hello, that voice somewhere. Like, what do you need to give you that direction? And they forget that voice is right here. So you clean out.
But you've got to have that self-esteem to go, okay, I'll put myself forward for that job. I'll literally move my body from this side of the room to that side of the room. Yeah. I'll go and introduce myself, and and literally I've done that before with an opportunity. Someone said to me, go and speak to that guy. He's the decision maker. He'd be interested in what you do. And it was when I was doing marketing contracting many years ago. And it led to a contract, which then led to many other contracts, and it was literally the same thing.
And set up. And that's where, for so many of us, we don't listen to the nudges. So when you look back in your life, you start to see where you were nudged. And that's when those pieces where you start to acknowledge every day, it doesn't have to be a big amount of work. You can just go, okay, that piece I'm letting go of, that piece I'm letting go of. And I found that when you really connect with that pure source energy, and I'm always, no matter if I'm who I'm with, what I'm doing, I'm always thinking. I thank that hand of God, which to me is love, universe, divine, pure source connection energy. And why am I thinking? Because I'm asking for them to be open to receive what that direct connection they have is, which takes away fear, which takes away doubt, which increases more awareness and more self-empowerment and connection. And then those layers start to come off. So then all of a sudden the ancestral comes off, the past life memories in the body come off. Like somebody said, how do you know past life? They're going to all these regressions. Like, why are you doing that? Well, how do you know? I said, easy. You ever watched a movie and you get triggered and you don't know why? Yeah. I said, well, chances are you resonate somewhere in your lifetime in that. Really? I'm like, yeah. If you watch the news, you get triggered. You don't know why. You have no reference point. Yeah. Even though I don't like to watch the news. And they're like, yeah. And I'm like, watch movies. I said, watch movies, watch shows. I said, if you get triggered or sometimes you get those goosebumps and you're like, there's some truth in this. And it's like, there, you've just solved a past life. What? I don't have to go under a regression. I'm like, if you want to, you can, but no, it's easy.
What you're doing is radical, because I work in a similar but different way. And it's like, it's too preposterous for a lot of people who need to go and do a week of ayahuasca or, go through some traumatic reenactment process of perhaps spend 7 days doing family constellations.
Yes.
For them to believe, for the ego, the pain body, to believe that something has shifted.
Yes.
When actually it enacts it. But yeah, sometimes I'm not writing off any of these modalities.
No.
Like you, to just go, it's done. It's almost too incredible. I'm encountering a lot of resistance when I'm trying to educate about my work. It's almost too incredulous for a lot of people to think, actually, what do you mean it's done? What do you mean I'm cleared of that?
You know what? It's interesting. I did constellation once. I did one for 5 days. Funny you brought that up. I've totally kind of wiped it out of my space. And during that time, I was doing a lot of different things like that, right? You're trying to find yourself. You're trying to go, what is this? Or what do I need to do? But I also realized, and this is why you're exactly right with the pain body, and people will have a hard time because, again, even in spiritual work, if you don't have that big, I say, if you don't feel anything, it's still working. If you have a feeling, it's still working. But what happens is there's been a teaching that unless you've had that, oh my God, I'm great, that you haven't let something go. But 99.9% of it is the awareness. The rest is asking for it to go. So it does go like that. Let it go.
Brilliant.
But the other thing I find, and you might find this, is people, they just want to talk about things that are yucky. Because if they can, they belong, because humans want to belong. And in our society, most people belong by having sickness, illness, disease, pain, trauma, suffering, right? So they're trying to find. So more societies about belonging that way and having to go through it. Like I know people that go to some of these retreats and I'm like, look at all these spirits you brought back with you. How nice is that? I can't stop. I'm convulsing. I'm crying. But they belong with all these other people.
Well,
that feed it.
I think it's like the consequence of not being enabled to have healthy narcissism as a child.
Yeah.
So we're denied the emotional spaces to have shared, to have received, to have been heard, to have been mothered and fathered, to have had the space to have our ego developed. So what's happening is there's a massive narcissistic trend of sharing on Facebook, sharing in womb circles, sharing in ayahuasca circles, sharing in this circle, that circle. And like you say, people just get absolutely loaded up with entities, spirits, and the most sensitive empaths absorb for the whole group. So a lot of people in the group might have a big shift and a catharsis, but the empath will be literally junked up with everyone's detritus.
Yes.
And the person running the group's like, great, let me attract some more empaths into this so I can appear to be an amazing facilitator. Is really, there's no understanding really of field dynamics, how the whole thing works. And
there isn't.
And so it's and then there's this thing, wow, it changed my life. And then there's also a program that the modality puts into everyone to go, yeah, I healed myself. Even if you didn't, they go around telling everyone it's massively shifted because there's a consensus reality of distortion, of collusion. You know, you hear
Yes.
that with ayahuasca. Oh man, it changed my life. I met the mother. And then you're
Yeah.
that with the person you love, but you're full of entities, dead spirits. I can feel your disconnection from your trauma, which you now is buried in you, and now you're not even aware of. You've somehow broken the connection, and it's not out of you.
Yes.
And
It gets deeper
yet
and
they've
deeper
got
and
this
deeper into the body.
program where they go around marketing
Yeah.
that ayahuasca has changed their life. And I'm like, I do
Yes.
see some people who it has
Yes.
with all modalities, but it's this obsession with sharing and not understanding what actually you're invoking in a lot
Yeah.
of these circles.
And not understanding, like with something like that, I've seen people, all of a sudden they're in a room with 20 people and they're all letting go of entities, spirits, shoving things down, picking each other's stuff. They just basically took home new friends. They took home new friends. So they got rid of some friends they didn't like, and they picked up some other ones and took them home. And like the positive thinkers, right? Let's push the emotion down
Oh,
further and further and further. Oh, I'm happy, further, further, rather than, okay, I have something I need to move through. Not pretty. I'm going to connect. I know I can let it through. I'm going to have the awareness, and it can leave. And so, yeah, they love to friend share. And you're like, why do you want to friend share? I always say, if you need anything to connect to pure source energy, you are not connecting to pure source energy. You should not have to put anything in
boom,
your vessel to connect to
boom.
pure source energy. Nothing. No alcohol, no drugs, no nothing. And if you do, you're not connecting to pure source energy, because the only way you do that is by cleaning your vessel and connecting. That's the only time you know it's pure.
Brilliant. And that's just such an alien concept
Sure it is.
for many. And
Sure it
I
is.
work in the exact same way, and it's like, it's so radical, yet it's beyond simple
It
in
is.
its discipline, and
It
it's
is.
in its directness, in its efficiency, and in its speed.
It is.
It's almost too much for the ego, and for this existing paradigm of thought that is dead set against it. Dead set.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm sorry, might be coloring the discussion, but
No, but it's true, because well, what
my
happens to
experience. It's just my experience.
society and hierarchies? Let's look at governments. Let's look at school. Let's look at banking. What happens if all of a sudden now you learn how to connect directly? You've done it. I've done it. So a lot of people don't like it, because now you start to realize you're in charge of your life. You're in charge of your decisions. You're creating direct, which means all these paradigms we've been placed in, you realize are lies. They're false.
Including
So
the New Age
yes.
one, especially the New Age
Oh,
one.
oh, it's so full of fluff. It's so much fluff. And I'm like, and people hate it when you get really, I will sometimes say, look, you can stop saying all that mumbo jumbo. If someone tells me one more time they're going to protect, I'm like, what are you protecting from? I said, if you're connected to pure source energy, that light's going to clean out what you need. What are you protecting from? Why are you white lighting everything and protecting? It takes you an hour to get in your car. I'm like, if you connect, I just thank God and God I'm having a good drive. And I'm like, open up the highway and make everything nice and good. And it happens. So this whole thing, I'm like, that alone, I meet people that tell me they spend an, oh, I got a light like this and that and this. And I'm like, if you're connected, pure source energy will open up that space. Just ask. Just ask. Your drive be nice and clean and everything's well, and you'll see it'll be fine. The traffic will open, things will move. And if it doesn't, perhaps there's a reason that just protected you from having an accident. Like, it's been made into saying ritual after ritual after ritual. And I'm like, so when I teach people, because one thing I realize is there is no right and wrong. And I say, get away from a manual, get away from, learn, understand what is happening in your system, do it your way, connect directly to pure source energy and do it your way. So if pure source energy tells you to go put on a Barney suit and sound on your head, and that's what you know works, go do it. If that's what you need. And it sounds crazy, but I'm like, if that's what it is, take the information and mold it your way. A lot of the old modalities, and I piss a lot of people off like this, because I have taught people how to get rid of the old modality teaching, take all the information and use it with pure source energy.
Yes.
And then they go back and the teachers are like, no, you can't do that. You have to do this method and this way, or it's not going to work. And I'm like, so who are you channeling? And they're like, what do you mean? I said, you're not channeling pure source energy if that's what you have to do. You are channeling their method, their ego, their modality, because you should be able to take, I don't care if it's ayahuasca or Reiki, whatever you feel you need to do, take all the information and say, what do I need to do? God, thank you, pure source, divine love energy. How are we going to work with this? And so when people they get so rigid and wait, I need my manual. Like I used to have manuals. I'm like, no more manuals. You know what? You hop online and we'll just teach you to connect, and you go home, you do it, and come back and tell us how you made out. Because they want step by step by step by step, or they did it wrong. That's not connecting to pure source energy. And that's taking you away from here. You're channeling that modality. You're now channeling that person. You're not channeling direct pure source energy.
Beautiful, Tracy. Beautiful.
Yeah.
Any last notes for the interview?
No, I love this conversation because you're the first person I have to say I've had a full on, like I have with, people like Rob, Julie, people in my area, but I'm like, when I bring this concept up here, even like what you're saying, people say, no, it has to be a certain way in terms of symbols and tools. I said, if you need a symbol, pure source, divine, God, beautiful angel, we'll give it to you. Then that's the one you use. But it's so beautiful because that's the thing that I love each and every day when people like you and me and Rob and other people we know connect and say, oh, I connected directly. I'm back in my inner power, my strength. And you will know when you need the liver detox. You will know when that comes up because you're constantly communicating. And I can't thank you enough for doing this, because the more people understand, for some reason, simple seems too hard.
I've learned so much from you today. Just want to thank you for sharing your knowledge and your wisdom and your life experience and your frustrations and your wins and your passion. You are an absolute force of nature.
Thank you.
So thank you for taking part in this.
I have to give it all up to the divine source, pure God energy. I'm just the vessel. And I say every day, make me the best person I can be, and whatever you need to tell me, I have no real part in it. I do and I don't, but I don't just say that. A lot of people say it comes from, I say the hand of God, because I had no belief and no trust in anything in my life, nothing. And when I realized how bloody wrong I was, and how that beautiful pure source energy has each and every one of us, that message is what I desire everyone to understand, that none of us are powerless. None of us have to live in suffering. None of us. And when you learn to connect directly, your whole life will change.
Beautiful last words.
Whole life.
Thank you, Tracy.
Thank you.